Hello and welcome to The Happy Geek. I'm Benjamin Tucker.
And I'm Danny McLaughlin, the Happy Geek himself.
Today we're going to be talking about Gamescom 2014. So we're going to go through the whole, kind of all the different kind of makers, aren't we? So
yeah. We're talking about the Microsoft conference, then the Sony conference, and finally the EA conference, and mentioning a few of the other announcements that were made throughout the whole Gamescom event.
Okay, so let's start with Microsoft then. Would you say they had a strong conference then?
Yeah, it was pretty strong actually. I quite enjoyed their conference, and they were showing quite a few exclusive titles, which we'll get into a bit later. But they started off with a few different trailers and things, and one of the new trailers was the new Assassin's Creed trailer.
Okay, is this for the
Assassin's Creed Unity? Yeah.
Okay.
And basically, there's nothing really new in the trailer. It was just showing off some of the environments and really pretty graphics and stuff like that. And as well as some of the new sort of free running capabilities. It all looks a lot smoother and a lot jumpier, which is quite good because obviously France developed parkour as, the French art of running away.
Yeah.
And
oh, I just got that. Go on.
Yeah. So anyway, although there was quite a little interesting bit at the end where the main character Arno sort of walks into this this theater type area, and there's 4 master assassins looking down on him, and I don't know what exactly is going on there, but it looks quite sinister and it's interesting.
It'd be quite interesting. Like, I think that in the last game, like Assassin's Creed 3, it kind of took away from something they had in the first and to a lesser extent in the second game. You actually had indoor environments as well,
yeah.
Like, especially in Revelations, things like the markets and stuff like that. So to be able to walk into theatres and stuff, that'd be really good.
Yeah.
One thing I'm really pleased about is that it's only on the kind of next gen consoles, because there's too many games that are coming out right now that are kind of on both, and I'd rather have them focus on really making the next gen ones just a lot better. Yeah,
that's what they're focusing on now. They're going on to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. They're just focusing mostly on those consoles, whereas the Assassin's Creed Rogue game is going to be on PS3 and Xbox 360, and it's going to be the last Assassin's Creed game to be on those consoles, and it's not going to be on PS4 or Xbox One.
I can probably see people buying that as well, so if they can handle the development for both games and get them both right, then that might be kind of like a double win for them.
Yeah, it all looks very exciting. But anyway, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, there was a trailer for that as well, and it was mostly the single player trailer because there was a multiplayer trailer, and that looks really good as well actually. There's a lot of new stuff going on. The jumpsuits, or rather the mech suits that you wear look quite interesting, and you can actually now pull doors off of cars and fling them like a frisbee at enemies.
Okay, that's a bit extreme for Call of Duty, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've also got smart grenades and things like that. It all looks really, really good, and the graphics look very good for a change. Like normally the Call of Duty games, the graphics have been subpar compared to a lot of other FPS games out there.
They were good. They kind of stagnated for a little while, I think, when they started kind of rehashing the same game every year.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see them kind of departing from that. I'm not such a fan of kind of semi-futuristic or futuristic shooters. Like, I do like a kind of modern-day shooter or something set at least a little bit in the past. So it'd be interesting to see how I kind of get on with it. But it sounds like there's interesting features in there.
Yeah, there's a few new features in there, and you'd be very well off, I think, going out and actually watching the trailer yourself, because it's well worth it, because there are, as I mentioned, a few new things going on, and it's worth a look. Next up, they had like the Master Chief Collection, and they talked a little bit about Halo 5. Halo came up an awful lot, as it tends to at Microsoft, because it's Halo is the face of the Xbox, and of course people are very excited about the Master Chief Collection. There was a few announcements basically saying that all these maps are going to be available, like all the maps in the old games are going to be available to play online.
Wow.
And they just talked a little bit more about Halo 5 Guardians. They talked about the new sort of setup and design of the red versus blue characters in the games, and they all look quite nice actually.
Okay. And
there's some examples of the maps and the new weapons and things like that, so it was quite interesting to look at. Also, they were talking a bit about some of the exclusive stuff that's going on, like in FIFA, you can now get 10 exclusive Ultimate Team members, so they're the old players that classic players. I think they did that last year, but I'm not sure whether that means if they're only doing 10, maybe that means they might be rolling out the old classic players onto the PS4 as well. I'm not too sure, but I'll have to check that one out. But that's pretty much the 10 ones are only coming to the Xbox One, and to me, I wasn't that fussed really, because I'm not a big FIFA fan anyway, but they actually got Peter Schmeichel to come on to the stage and talk about what his ultimate team would be, and I thought it was a bit
jarring, yeah?
Yeah, it was a bit weird and a bit corny, I suppose.
I think it's weird with FIFA because they take their kind of eye off the ball really with the kind of main modes, and they really do focus on Ultimate Team because they can make a lot of money out of it, I find, and I think they do put so much into it, especially the exclusivity and like some of the kind of pre-orders you can get like packs early and that sort of thing. Like, they're actually neglecting quite a lot of the other features in the game just because of this Ultimate Team, and for people that don't play Ultimate Team, it's not really the best thing.
Yeah, exactly. But they did say that Ultimate Team is one of the most popular FIFA modes that you can play on FIFA these days, and there are millions of people playing it, so people are getting very excited about it too.
Okay, so what more from the Microsoft side of the Gamescom?
Well, they went into some of the indie games. Most of them are coming first to Xbox, so you've got Space Engineers, which looks kind of interesting. It's like an open world game where you build all these space stations and start mining these asteroids and things, and then you can invade other ones, or other players will invade your mines and try to blow them up and things like that. So it looks alright.
Okay.
You've also got Super Hot, which is a game where you it's a first-person shooter game, but time only moves when you do. So it's very strategic, and you can stop bullets in midair and decide where to move and what's the best way to get out of the situation that you're in. And then there's The Escapists, which is a game where you're set in this prison, and it's like an RPG game where you have to try and work out the best way to escape the prison by crafting items and things like that.
That sounds really interesting. That's the sort of game that I think that has been crying out for ages. There's never been like an incredible kind of prison break game.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've always felt it's like a premise that's done so well in films, but it's never actually made the jump. There's been like kind of levels in kind of games where you had to escape a prison, but never anything where like the whole mission of the game is to get out.
Yeah. Yeah, also you've got a game that I was quite excited about, and I was upset to find that it's only coming to Xbox One, because obviously I'm going to have a PS4, and it's Ori and the Blind Forest. And this game looks really, really exciting and really, really pretty. But I found out that it was kind of funny that basically at Gamescom, it turned out that apparently one of the exhibitions that they'd shown with the game demoed, it had said Xbox One copy, and apparently it was running off a PC.
Okay, is that how they're developing it then?
No, it was basically they were running it off a high-end PC, or this is the rumour anyway, that they were running it off a high-end PC and claiming that it was an Xbox copy. So obviously the Xbox copy, if it hasn't been done as well as what you would find on a high-end PC, it's not going to look as nice basically. So it's a bit unfair for them to claim that that's what it's going to look like on Xbox when it's might not.
But it also suggests that they're quite prepared to bring it over to other platforms eventually. In fact, they might already be developing it, just waiting till the time is right to actually release it. Yeah,
exactly. You've also got quite a few bundles that they announced, like the Call of Duty bundle. It comes with a new skin on the console, as well as a 1 terabyte hard drive, which is quite good, and a headset, but no Kinect. And this will all cost £429. When it comes to the UK,
that's still a lot.
Yeah,
it does seem like a lot to me, even without the Kinect. I mean, that's still quite expensive.
Yeah, it is very expensive. And you can also get the Sunset Overdrive bundle, which has a white Xbox One, and obviously the game itself and stuff like that. And it's the average price now for a bundle and a game, so that's not too bad, but it's
probably the better option as well. I'm not such a big fan of having like skins on my consoles. I like to keep them as they are. I'm a bit of a purist myself as well. I like to keep it just nice and shiny the way it was meant to be. Also, they announced something that has been very controversial, and it's basically now that Tomb Raider is going to be a timed exclusive for the Xbox One. They still haven't announced exactly how long it's going to be exclusive for, but basically the rumour is that we might not get it until, well, several months after the game comes out for Xbox One. I mean, I could see it being like 6 months to a year in some cases. I mean, like,
if you look at Bioshock...
Yeah, Bioshock. Even Assassin's Creed originally wasn't. Didn't come to PS3 for a while. It's quite interesting to see that they've done that. I can't imagine they would have done it for any reason, for the fact that the original Tomb Raider, although it was like quite well received, it didn't sell amazingly well.
Yeah.
They didn't make a huge amount of money off it, and there's a couple of thoughts going around that maybe they needed this kind of exclusivity thing to actually even get the game off the ground. Like they weren't anticipating they'd make enough money, and this was a much needed kind of cash boost.
Yeah.
But really, is it going to make me turn around and go and buy an Xbox instead of a PS4? That's the nature of these exclusives. Like, I find they just annoy gamers, and they polarize gamers, really, when what they should be doing is bringing them together. Like, and I don't think they could really afford to not ever release it on the other platforms.
No, of course not. That wouldn't work for them as a business model. I think they have to release it on all platforms, and the gamers were actually saying they were going to completely boycott the game if it wasn't released on PC and PlayStation 4. And now it's even online, you can find loads of people going crazy, and they've even like photoshopped some images of the game, whereas, you know, it's titled Rise of the Tomb Raider. Lots of people have like renamed it Fall of the Tomb Raider and all this kind of stuff, and people are getting really upset about it.
It is a bit extreme. I mean, I'm annoyed by it, but I mean, I think they have to kind of look at this, though, developers, and see that like people aren't happy about this sort of thing. They pick a console, and not everyone has the luxury of being able to own both consoles.
Yeah.
And really, it's just annoying people, and if it I doubt there'll be a proper boycott. I really doubt it will come to that eventually, but if people are even considering that, they really have to kind of take notice of that, I think. Okay, so we're kind of done with Microsoft now. Let's move on to Sony. And what did Sony bring to the table? Were they as good as Microsoft? Who do you reckon kind of did better?
I think Sony were quite good at this conference, and they were definitely showing off how much they've done. Like, they told the viewers that basically they've sold 10 million units since November, which is a lot, obviously. And basically, the one thing that I didn't like about it is they focused, I think, too much on indie games. They didn't actually have any big announcements as far as AAA titles go. There were some AAA indie games, but just for me, it lost me a little bit.
So maybe they kind of got a bit too wrapped up in their own pride. Like a bit kind of self-indulgent.
But don't get me wrong, there were some really, really good announcements that I'll get into a bit later on. But they kicked off the show, I think, with one of their better games that have been announced, and it was the in-game footage for Bloodborne.
Okay.
Now, this game looks really exciting. It looks a bit like a Victorian London type setting, and there's lots of sort of demented villagers and stuff that come after you, and there's loads of strange looking creatures and things, and you have this massive sword and all this kind of stuff. It looks very, very gruesome and very pretty at the same time, and all the graphics are absolutely stunning, as you would hopefully expect on a next-gen console.
Yeah.
So it actually showed off some of the fighting mechanics and some of the environments that you'll play in, and it's getting people very excited.
So what are we talking like? Kind of like Devil May Cry kind of feel to it, or a bit different?
It's actually, I would say a bit of a Devil May Cry-esque feel to it, as well as a bit of, The Order 1886.
Oh, yeah.
It looks a little bit like that too, apart from maybe not so much steampunk. There's a little bit of steampunk-looking stuff in there, but not as much.
Okay.
So that's quite exciting stuff. But speaking of The Order 1886, there was another trailer, although it wasn't in the Sony conference. It's basically showing off another sort of story trailer, and it talks about Nikola Tesla and how he's going to be a character in the game, and he actually develops some weapons for the characters in it. So again, this is looking really exciting, and I'm getting really excited about that game too.
Nice.
Yeah. Also, we've got a lot of indie games. So you've got Volume, which is the creator said he was influenced a lot by Metal Gear Solid, the original, and so you can tell that from the way that it looks, basically, and it is just basically a stealth game, but it looks quite interesting as well. There's a lot of use of colour and environment, and it's coming to PlayStation first, so that's quite good. You've also got the DayZ, and that is a zombie game again. It's an open world zombie game with lots of different players, so it's a bit like an MMORPG type thing with lots of zombies around too. So that's another thing that people are getting quite excited about.
It's interesting they kind of keep pressing MMOs on consoles. I couldn't point to a really, really successful example of it working on consoles.
Yeah, I think they tried it with MAG, and it didn't go as well as they'd hoped.
DC Universe, is it, as well?
Yeah.
But then they ended up offering that for free.
Yeah, you can get that free to play now. It's not bad. I've tried it out. It's alright. It's not, it's not overly exciting. It's not overly bad.
I just find with those games, like, the kind of scale of the games, ends up detracting from the gameplay. The gameplay never quite matches up to other games just because of the nature of it being MMO, and like just they can't quite get it to be as interesting to play as other games.
Yeah, and I think Destiny's the next one to try the MMO sort of thing, although they're going a little bit different. They're trying to add more story and things to it, so at least Destiny have been trying something else. And they also announced at the Sony conference that Destiny is now the most pre-ordered game of all time.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's quite impressive.
And as well, they announced that PlayStation players will be able to get the Dark Below DLC pack if they pre-order and all this sort of stuff, so that's interesting. But one of the things that I got really excited about was the new Ninja Theory game, and they've developed Heavenly Blade and Enslaved Odyssey to the West as well. But the next game that they're going to make is Hellblade. Okay. And it's just, that's all they had to show, pretty much the main character and the blade itself, and people are getting very excited now. At first, there was a lot of people thinking that it was going to be the sequel to Heavenly Blade, but apparently that's not going to be quite the case, and people were thinking that the main character, because she looks an awful lot like an older version of Nariko's little sister, Kai, from Heavenly Sword, that people were thinking that this was going to be a grown-up Kai, but unfortunately that is being debunked as well. So yeah, people are very excited about Sony stuff coming up.
Let's hear some more about Sony's performance then. Like, what else have they brought to the table at Gamescom?
Well, they mentioned that PlayStation Now beta is coming to Europe and the UK. Obviously, it's open beta now in the UK, and you can actually go and start trying it out from today, pretty much, I think.
Wow, okay.
And I'm not too keen on PlayStation Now myself because the pricing is all wrong, I think. Plus, I don't really like having to sort of rent games. I'd rather just have the game, and I don't even like having a digital copy of the game.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I prefer having a physical copy, but I think it's going to get to the stage in a few years where everything could be sort of digital games, and I don't look forward to that because, as I say, I like having the box art and the actual game itself, but
as well,
we'll have to wait and see.
There's a kind of tangible value. I had the choice of either getting a digital copy of The Last of Us remastered or getting like a disc delivered, and if I ever want to trade it back in, I can always get. I'm unlikely to, really, because I like to keep a lot of my games anyway, but it's having that kind of physical value to it and something you can actually move on afterwards if needs be. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, I'd rather have it in my hands for now. Maybe in the future I might change my mind, but for now I do like physical copies of games.
Plus, the digital copies take up a lot more space, obviously. Also, we've got Tearaway coming to PS4. Now, this was a PlayStation Vita game that everybody loved, and a lot of people didn't really think they would be able to port it onto PS4, but they've completely sort of reinvented the game and brought it to PS4, and it actually looks quite nice, and it's kept most of its charm from the Vita game. So yeah, it could be an interesting one. We'll just have to wait and see about that. Until Dawn is another indie game that's being developed, and it's more of a AAA indie game, and basically it's going to be a survival horror type thing, but apparently you are like in a cabin and you're with, I think, 8 of your friends, but all of your friends could die or none of them could die depending on how you play the game.
Okay.
So this is an interesting concept, and it's just quite a nice looking horror game. Basically it's like the old classic horror film where all these, group of teenagers go to this, a cabin
in the woods sort of thing,
and they die one by one. So, could be an interesting...
Do you think we're kind of seeing a bit of a resurgence of, like, horror games? I mean, there was a bit of a lull. I mean, Resident Evil 4 kind of... Since then, there's never been, for me, apart from The Last of Us, a game that's actually kind of...
Scared you?
Well, not necessarily scared me, but, like, actually kind of successfully done the whole horror thing. There's not been any classics, really, since those two.
Yeah, I guess so, because people are thinking about it more, and I think horror for film is dead. For me personally. So I think the video games are the next best place for it, and I've mentioned before, the Oculus Rift for me would be a perfect place to fit in the horror genre because it's so immersive and things, but we'll talk about that another time. Next up, we've got the Metal Gear Solid 5 little clip, and it wasn't more of a sort of a gameplay or anything like that, but they were just sort of showing what you could do with the box, the classic hiding in the box thing. And so now you've got a few new mechanics with it. Basically, you can use the box to distract enemies and things by leaving the box, like if you are spotted while in the box, and you can also then just dart away. If you're close enough to a wall, you can just jump out of the box and hide somewhere while the guard goes and investigates the box, as well as having like posters and things on the box. So if you stand up, it looks like there's a guard on the front, And so, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous, but it's quite funny as well. And you can get like a pin-up model, like a swimsuit model type thing, and it'll make guards run over to the box and actually stare at the half-naked woman. So yeah, I thought that was quite funny.
It's just bizarre that the kind of guards in the world of Metal Gear they don't seem to get the whole why has that box appeared. They're just not too clever, the guards, are they?
No, not exactly.
Can you put explosives in the box and lure them over that way?
Possibly.
Or is the box too sacred to blow up?
You never know. So yeah, one of the most exciting things about the announcements was the PS4 Firmware 2.0. And what they announced with this is that basically they're going to introduce the whole bringing your friends in on games that they don't own yet. So if you have PlayStation Plus, you can actually now invite a player to play a game either along with you or to take control of a bit that you can't finish. So say you're playing The Last of Us and you can't get past a certain, say a boss or a certain...
Let's just say this is all theoretical because obviously I'm a better gamer than you.
Oh, yeah. Who won Trials Fusion again over you?
Yeah, whatever. I had a couple of drinks, right?
So anyway... Yeah, you can then hand over the controls to another player virtually in another part of the world. It doesn't matter where they are, and they can take over and play for so long. And you can also play online with them if they don't have the game, using co-op and things. So this is quite an exciting development.
Yeah, I've seen this with Far Cry 4.
Yeah.
They're kind of pushing that as a big feature of the game, be able to kind of invite people in for co-op. I think that's interesting. Like, it's nice to see that it seems like they're kind of giving something that they don't necessarily need to give, which is always nice. But if it makes them sell the game, then it's pretty much an extended demo, and it will work for that. If someone enjoys playing the game as they're playing in co-op, then they will go out and buy the game. It's just the way things work.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's move on to, I mean, they pretty much should have their own console now. They're a big enough kind of developer and publisher, aren't they? EA, what have they brought to the table at Gamescom?
Oh, dear. EA. Well, I was not impressed, really, with their conference at all. They kicked off with the new Dragon Age Inquisition gameplay trailer where it was showing one of the levels and some of the characters and stuff, and to be honest, it turned me off the game altogether. And this might just be me personally, like maybe other people got a lot more excited about it, but the gameplay trailer just sort of showed you fighting off all these undead soldiers and things like that, and also this whole idea where you can sort of take control of the map by freezing time and picking certain characters to defend certain parts of, say, a castle if you're invading a
tower
castle.
Defense kind of game.
Yeah, and I just didn't like it. I don't know, maybe it's just me personally, but I didn't like the look of it. I ended up just sitting bored through most of the thing. It's
an odd game because it's a bit like a kind of fancy Mass Effect, but I don't find it has the kind of combat to go with it. I found the combat when I played it just a bit not satisfactory. You don't really enjoy playing it as much as you do with something like Mass Effect.
Also, there was FIFA again. They showed a lot more FIFA, just talking about all these different little additives that they've put in with the game. There wasn't really anything that notable, just advanced physics and stuff like that, pretty much.
It's the same things every year. They just find new kind of PR language. I mean, the game does improve every year, but it's just so kind of finite. Unless you play it every year, you're not really going to appreciate the actual differences, I think.
Yeah. I think it's just graphical enhancements mostly with this game, and as I said, there's the exclusive players coming to Xbox as well. But other than that, not really that fussed about it now, to be honest. Although one thing that did sort of get me a little bit excited was BioWare's new game as well, Shadow Realms, which is supposed to be more of a narrative-driven game, and it's a fantasy game as well, but it's set in the modern day, and it looks like it could be good. There wasn't much in the way of like a gameplay trailer or anything. It was just showing some game footage and having some characters narrate and all that sort of stuff. But other than that, there wasn't much from the game itself. But it still it got me interested enough to give it a second look. After that, they had a 12-minute single-player playthrough of Battlefield Hardline. Now, this game actually looks like it might be good. The single-player in Battlefield has been subpar in the past, and this new idea of the bank heists and everything is quite a nice little idea, and I think it could be quite good. But basically, the gameplay that I saw was the main character being thrown in a prison, then he escapes, then it's a bit of a stealth thing, and there wasn't really much there for me. There's a lot of games very much like it out there today, and the only difference really was towards the end you got this new ability where you can flash your policeman's badge and people will automatically surrender if they think they have been properly captured and outnumbered and things like that.
It's an interesting kind of approach to what they're doing. They're trying to kind of build in like a proper story for the first time, and even the premise of the game is such a kind of departure from the other games. It does look interesting. The whole cops and robbers thing does look a lot of fun. It's just, how are they going to pull it off? It's a very new direction for them, and it's not really something I've seen them kind of doing before.
Yeah, I have faith that the game, at least the multiplayer version of the game, will be very entertaining and very fun to play. Like, they announced a few different game modes where, like, for one, you have to go and rescue a hostage, and it's 5-on-5, I believe. So you've got 5 hostage takers and 5 SWAT members, and you have to go in, invade, like, say, a house, or one of the ones from the trailer was like a drug den, and you had to rescue the hostage, get away, and also try and get away before this massive explosion happened because they burst a gas pipe or something along those lines. I don't quite know, but, you know, explosive finishes and all that. You've also got a few other gameplay modes as well. One of the new ones that they talked about was actually the cops and robbers, where you're trying to escape the cops in the cars and things, so you're driving away and you're also, you know, shooting back at cops, or you're playing as the cops and you're chasing after the bad guys, trying to kill them, and there's lots of jumps and lots of different environmental things to watch out for and things like that, so it could be interesting.
It could be. What else have EA brought? Anything interesting?
Sims 4 was their last big thing, and again, I'm not a big fan of Sims. The last time they released Sims, it went very, very badly for them.
SimCity.
SimCity. Yeah, it didn't go quite well for them, so we'll have to wait and see what Sims 4 brings, but there's a lot more to do in Sims 4, but for me, again, it's
a huge game, though. It's liked by a great many people, and it's more like a casual gaming sort of thing. I enjoy The Sims, it's good fun to play, but you do kind of get wrapped up into it. It's like one of those kind of football manager type games that kind of just reels you in and there's no escape.
You get sucked in.
Yeah. So I think that's all we have time for on The Happy Geek. Until next time, I'm Benjamin Tucker.
And I'm Danny McLaughlin.
Bye-bye.